talk about the benefits of saving in a 403B or 457 plan. My name is Ariana Wright. I am the Manager of Compliance for U.S. Omni and TSA-CG Compliance Services. We are the third-party administrator for your employer's 403B or 457 plan. Our main responsibility is to ensure that your employer is adhering to IRS regulations when administering their retirement plan, but we also assist with education, such as this presentation, because we believe that saving for retirement, especially in today's economic climate, is incredibly important, and every employee should be set up for a successful future. We're going to start with the most common question we receive. What is a 403B plan? Most people tend to be more familiar with a 401k retirement plan, and a 403B is very similar to a 401k, but it is exclusively for governmental employers and certain nonprofit entities, such as hospitals, legal aid society, and churches, just to name a few. This is a supplemental retirement plan that allows you to save some of your income each year. We say supplemental because most educators have access to a state pension program that will provide you with some income when you retire, but depending on your lifestyle, it may not be enough. A 457 is also a supplemental retirement plan. It is subject to some different rules than a 403B, and it may not be offered by all employers. If you want to know whether or not your employer offers a 457, you can find that information on our website, which I'll go over later in the presentation. We also get asked about who can participate in a 403B, and that answer can vary. Employers are allowed to restrict certain employees from participating in the plan, such as part-time employees or student teachers, although the majority of employers have moved to allowing all employees to contribute. You will be able to determine what employees, if any, your employer restricts on our website. The 457 is slightly different from the 403B. The employer can restrict a greater class of employees. So, for example, your employer could have a 457 plan, but it may only be open for administrators or for employees who are not a part of a union. Again, you'll be able to determine all of this on our website as to whether or not you would qualify for a specific 457 or a 403B plan. So now that we've covered what a 403B is and whether or not you can contribute, let's talk about why you should take advantage of this plan. When you contribute to a traditional 403B, your contributions are tax deferred, meaning that you do not pay federal and sometimes state, depending on your location, taxes on that amount at the time of the contribution. This helps to cut down on your taxable income for the year. For example, if your normal salary is $60,000 per year and you choose to contribute 10% or $6,000 of that into your 403B, your taxable income is actually $54,000, and that is the amount you will be responsible for paying federal taxes on. Depending on what type of 403B investment you choose, whether it's an annuity or a mutual fund, you will likely end up gaining a fair amount of interest or gains on your contributions. These earnings continue to accrue over time and are only taxed once they are withdrawn from the account. We know it's sometimes easier to see the big picture when you have something visual, so we've provided a chart to show you some examples of what you can expect to see when you can contribute even just a very small amount every paycheck. Now, these amounts are just for example only. You could very well end up with significantly more after 10 to 20 years, or you may end up with slightly less. But this is a good representation of someone who has chosen a very low risk type of 403B where you're earning steady interest over time. But it really shows that you don't need to start off with large contributions to make a difference. Even starting off with $25 each paycheck is going to be helpful. And hopefully down the road, as you progress in your career, you can increase your contributions as you go and really start to see that balance add up. So for the first example here, we have $25 per paycheck. And after 10 years, you can expect to see something in the range of $8,234. And after 20 years, you could have around $23,217. If you go up to $150 per paycheck, after 10 years, you'll see you could have $49,409. After 20 years, that turns into $139,305. So even if you're just contributing small amounts, as long as you're contributing steadily and you contribute early, you could potentially compound that to quite a bit of money savings for retirement. The previous slide was an example of a traditional pre-taxed 403(b) retirement account. If your employer offers a 403(b), they have to offer the traditional pre-tax, but that is not the only investment option for this type of plan. Many employers are starting to add what is called a Roth option to their 403(b) and 457 plans. This type of contribution is subject to taxes in your paycheck, so it is a post-tax contribution instead of the pre-tax contribution. Now, you may be wondering, what's the point of putting money into an after-tax 403(b) instead of just putting it into a savings account? And that's a great question. A Roth 403(b) has the ability to gain a significantly higher amount of interest or gains while that money is in your account, rather than the very small percentage that you would get with a savings account. And while you don't get the benefit of lowering your income tax, the Roth contributions have a different benefit in that your funds are tax-free when withdrawn. In addition to your contributions not being taxed when they're withdrawn, because you've already paid taxes on them at the beginning, your gains and interest are also not taxed. So depending on when you plan on retiring, you could end up with a considerable tax savings in your later years rather than at the beginning. Roth accounts are particularly popular with the younger generation of employees. Tax rates are always uncertain, so it may be a better option to pay the current tax rate and save on retirement than risk paying what could be an increased amount of taxes on the amount 20 to 30 years from now. This is especially true if the employee in question doesn't really need the benefit of a reduced taxable income that comes with a pre-tax plan. And you can always open both types of plans. You can have a pre-tax, you can have a Roth in addition to that and contribute to both. Or you could always switch later in your career if you feel that you need that reduction in taxable income down the road. Now, there is one caveat to the tax-free portion of the Roth account. You do need to keep a Roth account for 5 years after your first contribution in order to receive this tax benefit. So if you open a Roth and you leave your employer less than 5 years after, you may want to leave those funds in there for a while until you hit that 5-year mark so that you can make sure you're getting the full benefit. Again, not all employers offer a Roth option, although most have made changes to allow this benefit and can add it if they do not currently offer it. You can find out if your employer has this option through our website. The most important factor to consider when contributing to a 403(b) or 457 is the timing. I know it's a common line that's thrown around, but the reality is that the earlier you start contributing to a retirement plan, the better off you will be. Because of compounded interest, the length of time that your money is invested is often more important than the amount of money that you actually invest. To explain this, we have a short video that I would like to play for you comparing two individuals, one who started contributing right away and stopped working, and one who worked for a long time but didn't start contributing until a bit later.
Why 403(b)? A better question is, why not? It just makes sense, not just to do it, but to do it now. Consider the story of Harry, his sister Sally, and their Uncle Sam. Harry and Sally got their jobs at the same time in the same school district. Both took a look at the benefits to see what they had to offer. After all, they're called benefits for a reason. One smart move Sally made was to start saving with a 403(b) tax-free savings account. Let's come back to that. Her brother looked at the benefits and thought, cool, I'll get in on that later. The young man had a busy social schedule, and he didn't think it made sense to start to put money away. It's not that Harry isn't a smart guy. Both of them are smart. It's just that he didn't take the time to understand the importance or ease of getting in on a 403(b), which is a shame. Because while Sally was saving her hard-earned money and lowering the amount of income tax coming out of her pay, Harry was throwing too much of his money to his Uncle Sam, who they both saw once a year. Had Harry understood how simple a 403(b) is to set up, and how important it is to start saving in a 403(b) sooner rather than later, he likely would have made a different decision. If only someone had shown him the facts. Let's take a step back. And look at this another way. Okay, Sally sets up her 403b and she's well set. Small contributions that don't really dent her income, but will add up in the long run. Her brother doesn't. For the price of a few trips to the local coffee shop, he could, but he just hasn't been properly instructed. So he waits. Years. And that time is costly. Very costly. His sister starts her 403b right away and is in the plan for 7 years. That's it. After those 7 years, she decides to become a full-time mom, and her contributions to the plan stop. Harry does not sign up initially and gets in about the same time his sister stops working. Time passes. Lots of time. Sally's 403b continues to grow, even though she stopped contributing. Her brother, he doesn't have that luxury. Because he waited, it takes him over 20 more years of working and saving for the value of his 403b to equal hers. Think about that. 20 more years to save the same amount because he waited. Okay, snap back to now. Harry finally sat down and had someone explain the plan to him, and the light went on. Harry realized that it just made sense. Simple, common sense. So he signed up. Way to go, Harry.
When I was a student,
Okay. So I wanted to make sure that you saw that video because I feel like it's a great representation of why it's important to save early. Now, please keep in mind that this does not mean that you can't or shouldn't still contribute to a 403b if you've been working for a while, or even if you're in your final retirement years. It's still a great tool for reducing that taxable income. And even if you miss a few years like Harry did, you still end up with a strong portfolio in the end. But this is just to illustrate that if you are young and you're just starting out, it's a common theme to say, oh, I have the next 20 years to save for retirement. I'm going to keep this extra money for now, and I'll start saving down the line. And it's really not understood just how big of an impact those first few years can have on the end result. So I do really want to encourage you to start saving as soon as possible, even if it's just a small amount for now, because that is going to set the tone for your potential to save more further in your career. Once you've decided to contribute to the 403b or the 457 plan, it's important to note what your limitations are for contributions. There are a couple different limits that are dependent on your age and some other factors. The base limit for 2022 is $20,500. If you are watching this video in the future, you can find the base limit for the current year on our website or even through a quick Google search. Beginning in the year that you turn 50, the IRS allows you to contribute an additional $6,500 for a limit of $27,000. This is so that you can save a bit more aggressively as you're nearing that normal retirement age for most pension plans. The 403b also has a potential additional $3,000 that you may be able to contribute based on your historical contributions and the amount of time that you've been with your employer. If you've worked for your employer for at least 15 years, it doesn't have to be consecutive, and you have contributed less than $5,000 average per year over your employment, then you would qualify for this catch-up. The 457 also has a special catch-up. There is no requirement for years of service. However, you can only utilize the 457 catch-up for the 3 years prior to your employer's chosen normal retirement age. And it's also dependent on how much you've contributed to the plan in the past. Both of these catch-ups are an optional provision for your employer's plan, so not all employers permit them, and it is becoming a bit of a rare provision for them to allow just because of all of the historical contribution data that is necessary. Not a lot of employers keep records far enough back to provide all of the information that's needed, but you would want to contact our participant service center if you're interested in utilizing either of these, and we can let you know if your employer offers it. But the important thing to note when considering your limits to these plans is that the 403B and the 457 are subject to different tax codes, which means that you can contribute the maximum to each of these plans separately. So let's say that you are retiring and you are receiving a rather large payout due to some sick or vacation time that you've accumulated over the years, and your employer plans on paying this out as a normal payroll check. If you are over the age of 50, you could contribute $27,000 to each of these plans for a total of $54,000. And that would save you thousands of dollars in federal income tax. Now that we've talked about what a 403B plan is, your options for pre or post-tax, and your limits on contributing, it's time to discuss how to actually start making these contributions. We tried to make starting your contributions as easy as possible, but there are some steps that you have to take as the participant. I'm going to steer away from this PowerPoint at this time so that I can show you in real time how to navigate our website in order to find your employer's plan and walk you through the process. So here we have our website. It is omni403b.com. And when you get here, you're going to see some tabs up at the top. So you're going to hover over employees and you'll see a list of options that you can choose from. Right now, we're going to focus on your plan page. So if you click on that, it's going to ask you to input your employer state and your employer name. For this example, I'm going to use our local school district, which is Rochester City School District. And you'll notice you just have to type the first few letters. Once you do that, it should pop up the school district for you. Click on it and then hit go. Now here is the list of all of the providers that a Rochester City School District employee can choose from for their 403B. You will notice it is quite a long list. It's not necessarily uncommon to see a list this long. They do vary wildly. You may have a school district who only offers 2 to 3 providers. You can have a school district, I've seen up to 85 listed in some areas. The important thing is that the employers try to include a varying number of options available for you as far as investment types. So you can see over here in the middle, we have these little colorful radio buttons. These are going to tell you whether this provider offers a fixed annuity, fixed index annuity, variable annuity, retirement advisory services, or mutual funds. And if you're unsure about what any of these mean, we have a list up here. And if you hover over the name of the investment type, it will give you a little breakdown of what each of these are so that you can kind of learn a little bit more and figure out what's going to be the best product for you. Once you've determined what type of investment you want and which providers offer it, at that point, you're going to be contacting these providers to set up an account directly. So we give you a couple different options to do that. If the provider has given us a general customer service number, we will list it over here. You can click on any of these blue links and it will take you directly to their websites. Any provider that has this little notepad and pencil means that they offer online enrollment. So if you click on that, it's going to take you directly to their website where you can set up a plan directly through their site. Any provider that has this little person icon indicates that they have a financial advisor for the area that you can contact directly. So if you click on that, you're going to see their name, their phone number, email address. If they have a dedicated website, it will list that for you. And if they provided us with a picture, you will be able to see that as well. And then finally, if you prefer for somebody to contact you instead of the other way around, you can do that by clicking on this blue arrow here. And it will give you a list of providers that have requests for informations. So you can click on any of these provider names that have, the type of funds that you're interested in. You'll put in your name, your phone number, or your email address, and then they'll contact you directly. It is important to note that the only providers that are available to you if you are a new employee or if you are new to investing are these ones up here. You will occasionally see some grandfathered funds. These are down below the normal funds and they have the double asterisk next to them. These are unfortunately providers that are no longer working directly with the employer. We do allow for employees who were already contributing to these providers when they decided to stop allowing new accounts to continue to contribute to them. So these are only for grandfathered employees. If you're new to contributing and you're not already contributing to one of these grandfathered providers, you will need to choose someone from on the top of the list. If you scroll a little further down the page, you'll see plan features. This is where you're going to find out if your employer restricts any type of employees from contributing. You'll see Rochester City School District does not allow student teachers or teachers' aides to contribute to the 403B. It will also tell you other information about the plan, whether they allow for loans, hardships, transfers, rollovers. All of the information is available on this page. Once you have found a provider that you want to utilize, you're going to contact them to open the account. And then once you've done that, you can start submitting an SRA to start those contributions. So what you're going to do is over here on the right-hand side of the page, we have a start or change contribution button that you can click on. Or if you're not on the plan details page and you want to get there from the home page, you can do that as well. You're going to hover over employees and again, just start change contributions. If you go through the homepage route, you're going to have to put in the information for your employer again. So this is the page that you're going to see for salary reduction agreement forms, and we do have 3 different options available for you. The first is the 403B SRA Express shortened form. This is a new form that we put on our website in 2020. It is good for new employees or employees who are only contributing to one provider and you want to start that contribution immediately. If you are contributing to more than one provider, like we discussed, if you want to do a pre-tax and a Roth, or if you want to do a mutual fund and an annuity, so you want to contribute to more than one provider, or if you want to delay the start of your contributions, let's say that it's summertime and you don't want to start it until fall, that's fine. You can do that. You can't do it with the express shortened form. You do have to use the online SRA submission or the downloadable PDF version. We do still give you the option of a paper form in the PDF version, but you will have to print it and sign it and either mail it or fax it back to us. You can't fill out the PDF version on the computer and e-sign it and send it to us. It would have to be printed and physically signed. I really do urge you to do the online SRA submission. It's a lot quicker. We know that there's not going to be any errors on the form because it won't allow it to be submitted if you don't put in required information. It's a lot easier than trying to decipher people's handwriting. And then you also will get a confirmation that it's been received. So you don't have to worry about, was the form received through fax? Was the mail delivered? It just makes it a lot easier for all parties involved to do the online SRA. And we do have a completely safe website. You'll notice up here the little lock. That means that we are a secure website, so don't worry about your information being leaked in any way whatsoever. We are a very secure website. So I'm going to walk you through the online SRA. We're going to click that little radio button and hit Let's Begin. So you'll notice we are on step 1 of 3. I'm not going to go all the way through the form because I don't want to submit any fake forms into our system. But we're on step 1 of 3 right now. The first information that you will see is employee information. And the very first box says to click here if you have contributed to another 403B, 401A, or 401K plan offered by another employer in the current calendar year. So this is so that we can keep track of your limit for you. We want to make sure that you don't go over the limits that we talked about in the previous slide. because it's very important that, if you go over your maximum, you're going to have money returned to you. That's going to result in a corrected W-2, potentially corrected taxes. It's a huge hassle for everyone involved, and we don't want to have to go through that. So make sure that you check that box if you're coming from another employer and you've already made contributions. That way we can just keep it in our system for this year, so we know not to let you go over a certain amount. The rest of this is just basic demographic information. Everything with the red asterisk has to be filled out in order to submit this form. We do ask for your social security number. Again, this is a very secure website. If you are apprehensive about it, you are welcome to download and print that PDF form, but you do still have to put your full social security number on it. That's how we remit money to these providers, so that we know that it's not going to the wrong John Smith somewhere, right? Your social security number is unique only to you, so we know that that money is going to the right account for the right person. If you have a financial advisor and you would like for them to be copied on any information, you can click this button right here, and you can put in their name, their phone number, their email address, and you can click this button to copy them in on it. There are a couple different options as to what you can do on the salary reduction agreement. The first and most often used is the recurring contribution, which we will go over. The second is a one-time contribution. So this is if you're getting a longevity bonus, a sick time payout, vacation payout, anything like that, where you're going to have one large paycheck and you want a good amount to come out of that. You can click the one-time contribution and you can just do a certain dollar amount for one time only. And then the last option is that you don't want to participate. So we're going to go through this recurring contribution section. You will see this big red bold notice that says that any contributions listed will supersede all current recurring contribution to your employer's 403B plan. So this just means that if you are, let's say you're contributing already and you have a pre-tax plan and a Roth plan, and you just decide that you want to increase the amount to your pre-tax. You're going to leave the Roth alone. You just want to pay a little bit more into that pre-tax one. You still have to list the Roth on here. If you don't, what's going to happen is that our system will stop the Roth contribution completely and assume that you don't want to contribute anymore. So everything that you're currently doing needs to be listed on this SRA. It's also important to note that if you are already contributing, this form is a fresh form. So make sure that you're putting the new total amount you want withheld, not like increase it by $10 and only put $10 on the form. You would want to put the new total. And this form is very simple. So you're going to pick your plan type, whether that's pre-tax or traditional, or sorry, post-tax or traditional, and then the investment provider that you want to contribute to. There is a space for the account number. You'll see it's not asterisk. We don't need it for anything. We don't utilize it on our end. Most providers honestly don't have account numbers anymore. They tend to use your social security number as well. But we do leave that box there for you. The date that you want it affected by, if you want it to start immediately, you can just use today's date. And the amount or percentage that you want taken out per pay period. That is important to note because we do occasionally receive SRAs with, $20,500 listed on it. And we know that that means that they want that much taken out for the entire year, but we can't calculate that for you. Last thing you want to do is put something like $5,000 down on this form and you mean year, and then you end up with a really bad surprise on payday. So make sure that you are putting the amount per pay. Down here, you will see agreements and acknowledgements. Make sure you read this through. And then you're going to put your social security number in here and hit continue. Again, I'm not going to go through this whole form because I don't want to put a fake form into our system. But once you do that, it's going to take you back to the top and you'll see that you will be on step 2 of 3. All this is going to do is have you look over the form and make sure that everything you've entered is correct. It'll have you put your social security number in one more time at the bottom, and then you'll submit it and it will take you to step 3 of 3 where you'll get a confirmation and a tracking number. Once you get that tracking number, you're good to go. One more moment while I get back to the slides. Okay. So you'll see here that I have an example up on the screen. It's just showing you again where to find that form. So if this is your first time contributing in general, or if you're even just contributing to a new provider, the email that you will receive once you submit an SRA will say something along the lines of US Omni will need to confirm an account with this provider before remitting contributions. This is because we reach out to the provider to make sure that you have an account and that it's ready to receive contributions before we will notify your employer to start withholding funds from your paycheck. Being responsible for your money is something that we take very seriously, and we don't want to send money to a provider and have it be in stasis somewhere, not earning you any gains or interest because your account isn't ready yet. So we make sure to get that confirmation first. Once we get that confirmation, we send your employer a notification that tells them how much you want to contribute, when you would like it to start, and then they take it from there. Now that you've opened an account and started making contributions, what do you do if you have an emergency and you need to take that money out? The first thing I will tell you is that the IRS is very set on a retirement account being used for retirement. You are getting the benefit of your contributions being tax deferred, and along with that benefit comes some rules. The first being that you cannot take a regular distribution or close your account unless you are 59 and a half or you are separated from the employer who sponsored your plan. But the vast majority of employers have some other options to help you take some of that money. The first is a hardship withdrawal. This is an optional provision for your employer, but there are very few who don't allow this. Per IRS regulations, you can take a hardship in these 7 circumstances listed on this slide. Number 1 is purchase of a principal residence. This must be your primary home. You cannot take a hardship for a second home, vacation home, rental property, commercial property, etc. Number 2, if you are facing eviction or foreclosure, make sure you reach out and apply for this as soon as you start to get behind in payments because hardship is only for prevention. Once you have been foreclosed on or evicted, unfortunately, you no longer qualify. So you can't take funds to pay any judgments or costs associated with moving or for securing a new living space after the fact. Number 3 is payment of medical expenses. This includes yourself, your spouse, and your dependents. It does include estimated medical expenses for any type of procedures where you may need to pay in advance, and it does cover medical expenses that are in collections. Number 4 is repairs to your principal residence. This is for damages that have occurred. It can't be used for any type of home improvement. Number 5 is post-secondary tuition. This is for yourself, your spouse, and your dependents. Number 6 is funeral expenses, and this covers your spouse, your parents, or your dependents. And number 7 is a new one that was just added in 2020. It's expenses and losses, including the loss of income if you were in a FEMA-related disaster. This covers both where you work and where you live. So if your school was flooded in a hurricane and they had to close for time and you lost income, you can take a hardship to cover the amount that you would have made if your employer had been open. Hardship requests have to be accompanied by documentation proving that you are in financial need, and you cannot request more than the amount of the actual hardship. So for example, if your medical bill is $211.45, you cannot request more than that exact amount. It also does not cover any of the above that has already been paid via a loan or a credit card. This is a common question that we get, especially with post-secondary tuition. Sometimes participants think that they can request a hardship to pay for their student loans. Unfortunately, that is not the case. This is to pay the tuition directly to the institution. There are other federal programs available to help with your student loans. This is not one of them. Same goes for medical bills and home repairs that were paid for on a credit card. The bill has to be something that is due directly to the company. The 457 has very similar rules. The age of withdrawal may be higher depending on your employer. Prior to 2020, the distribution age for 457 was 70 and a half. There was legislation that permitted the employer to lower that age to 59 and a half to match the 403B. Not all employers have taken that option though. The 457 also has a hardship withdrawal. It's called unforeseeable emergency. This does not cover post-secondary tuition or the purchase of a primary residence because neither of those are unplanned expenses. Your employer may also allow you to take a loan. You can take a loan for 50% of your account balance or $50,000, whichever is the lesser of the two. You would pay the loan back directly to the service provider and they will set the terms of the loan. It is not paid through your payroll, but it is a great option if you don't qualify for a hardship. Even if you do qualify for a hardship, it's a good option to consider. I personally have taken loans from my 401k, even in situations where I could have taken a hardship because I want that money to be there when I retire. If you are coming from another employer that has a 403b, you can potentially transfer that money from that employer to an account with your new employer. All employers permit exchanges, meaning if you are contributing to one provider and they're just not providing the kind of returns that you're looking for and you want to switch, you can do that as long as the provider is on your employer's list of approved providers that we saw on that plan details page. You may also be able to roll over money from a 401k or a 457 or other retirement plan into your 403b. There are a couple other changes that took place in 2020. The Secure Act was passed, which added a distribution option for the birth or the adoption of a child. This is great. So you can take a distribution of up to $5,000 per child within the first year of adoption or birth. You can pay this back if you want to, but you don't have to. And again, this is per child. So if you end up having twins or if you adopt a group of siblings, you can take $5,000 out for each of them. This is a great addition because it's especially helpful in terms of covering some extra parental leave time or childcare. It just takes some of the financial weight off of the shoulders of new parents so that they can focus on that bonding rather than being stressed about how they're going to afford things. There were also changes to the hardship rules. Prior to 2020, if you took a hardship, you would be forced to stop your contributions to the 403b for 6 months. That is no longer the case. They also used to require you to take the loan option if you could before taking a hardship. And hardships could only be taken from the funds that were put into your account through your own paycheck. So if your employer had matching contributions or made any type of employer contribution to the plan, you couldn't pull from those funds. That has changed as well. If you need to apply for any of the transactions that we've discussed in the past few slides, you can do that on our website. You'll go to the home page and under the employee dropdown, just choose transaction forms, and it will bring you to the page that has all of the forms available for you to complete online. If you qualify for whatever you're applying for, you'll get an email from Omni with an approval letter attached, and you will send that to your provider directly with any forms that they need on their end. Alternatively, if you don't feel comfortable with our online forms, you can just send us your service provider paperwork and we'll approve it if you qualify and send it on. The only exception is for the hardship and the loan. We do require an Omni form to be filled out for those, but like with the SRA, there's a downloadable version if you want to do that instead and mail and fax it in. Also, just to point out, if you get to the transactions page and you don't see a form for a loan or a hardship, that does mean that your employer does not allow for these to be taken. It's rare that we see employers who do not permit them, but there are a few. So just be on the lookout for that. If you don't see the form available, it's because it's not permitted. That's all I have for you today. I will leave this last slide up for a minute with our phone number, email address, and website. Please don't hesitate to contact our participant services team with any questions you may have. We're more than happy to help walk you through the process of any of the forms that I've talked about today. And I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar. I hope you found the information to be helpful, and I wish you the best.